All right, I'm recording.
Oh, now you're a bit like you've got a different sort of tone now, Alex.
I think you've got the headphone mic. I got a mic on these cans.
That's kind of better actually.
Yeah, it's a bit better though.
It's better than the Mac.
Musicians call them cans.
It's less of a Mac sound.
So we've got this new
Yeah,
thing.
it's more of a Marshall sound. These are
Yeah.
Marshall headphones.
Yeah, Marshall's sponsored by Marshall.
It's a Marshall microphone in there. They're great. I mean, every studio I've been definitely uses Marshall mics.
Yeah.
Mini mics.
We have a style we do, Bleeker, now that the only way that it works to sync up the audio is if I say, "How are you doing today, Alex?" And you have to say, "I'm fine, thanks, Johnny," or else it doesn't work.
Okay.
So I'll start with James. How are you doing today, James?
I'm doing fine, thanks, Johnny.
How are you doing today, Bleeker?
I'm fine, thanks, Johnny.
That's great to hear.
We got it now, Robbie.
We got it now, Johnny.
Did you guys enjoy the Brady Bowl? Or
Wow.
Oh, hated it. It's the only actually game of football that I've watched in like 5 years.
Yeah.
It was a terrible game. Just terrible.
Really boring game, yeah.
Why don't you do
Super boring with a bad result.
Johnny, you're the you know about this you know about all this shit. Why don't you just walk us through it a little bit? What happened?
Well, I know that a lot of Kansas City Chiefs fans would like to tell you that the refs rigged the game in Brady's favor. There were a lot of penalties in the first half for sure, but I would say that the Tampa Bay defense won that game because every single snap I saw, there were two guys right in Patrick Mahomes' face,
blitzing,
like taking him down. I don't really know how the refs can do that. You got a problem with your O-line there, buddy.
Yeah, okay, Mahomes was running around a lot. I had no idea who Patrick Mahomes was before today. I used to be a football fan too, but
he's cool as hell.
He's got the Head and Shoulders curse. He does the Head and Shoulders commercials, so he's fucked now. It's a curse. As soon as you sell your soul, there was a soccer goalie who did it, and it destroyed his career. It's
worth it though, right? Because otherwise you just get just concussions on the football field are like millions of dollars from shampoo money.
Yeah, because that's also one thing people don't realize about the NFL is like the quarterbacks don't make much money. They're on kind of an American minimum wage, so they have to do things like Head and Shoulders commercials to.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least that's the information we get up here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, we
don't have socialized football down here, so it's a mess. It's a struggle for these guys.
I don't know. Do you guys have this thing down in the States called Skip the Dishes?
Is that like Canadian
it's like
football?
Uber Eats. It's like Uber Eats.
No, we don't have that.
Okay,
we just have the real Uber here. I know
we have that. We have Uber here too
in Vancouver. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah,
wow.
Finally, it took a while. You're not wrong.
It took a while for them to smash the taxi unions.
Yeah. Good effort.
It actually it actually didn't take them that long, considering how devastating it probably was to the taxi unions. But they made short work of it. But No, so we have this thing called Skip the Dishes here, which is like Uber Eats. And for some reason, if you watch sports, every single commercial, there is a Skip the Dishes commercial starring John Hamm from Mad Men, and they're the most fucking annoying commercials, like, I think, in the history of commercials. And I swear they're spending millions and millions of dollars. And I was just wondering if any of you guys noticed that, because not only...
they got him? This is how they got him. And you guys know this. You're musicians. They're like, John Hamm, do this commercial. Don't worry. It's only in Canada.
Yeah.
Totally.
And he was like, oh, great. I'm going to make millions, and it's only in Canada, so nobody will see it.
So in the States, he's still like Emmy Award-nominated actor John Hamm, but here he's the Skip the Dishes guy.
Yeah, and like if he were in a commercial here, it would be like some Super Bowl level, like, oh shit, they got John Hamm in that commercial. Like, damn.
Okay, I get it now.
Do you think I should? Do you think I should subscribe to Rolling Stone so I can pull up the American Beauty review?
It's behind a paywall.
Yeah, they paywalled it for some reason.
Well, no, you know what? I think you should pull up the Pitchfork review, because about a year ago they gave it a 10 out of 10, guys.
Wow.
Don't worry. Pitchfork came around to the Grateful Dead.
I think a lot of your friends work at Pitchfork, don't they, Bleeker? So I don't want to be
not anymore.
Yeah.
The algorithm, the Grateful. Let's start there. Actually, the Grateful Dead have had such a resurgence among hipsters that Pitchfork, the new Condé Nast Pitchfork, decided that the algorithm was worthy of giving American Beauty a 10 out of 10.
We were joking around the other day about Pitchfork and how they said that Joni Mitchell's Blue was the number 86 best album of the 70s on their top 100 list.
Yeah,
I'm willing to actually. You know what? I want you to pull this up and do the whole bit again, but with Bleeker, because it's really good. Because it's actually, you're gonna love this. Can I pull it up?
Well, I think that
I want to do it.
Do they have a complex algorithm that determines that she's 86? Who's 85?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Wait a second. Don't let him figure it out for himself.
Okay, no, I'm not going to tell him.
He's going to be so good at it.
I'm not going to tell him who's on the list, but I am going to say that we were cracking up about all these albums that were on it, like What's Going On by Marvin Gaye's like 65 or something, and then that probably this was before 2020. It came out in like 2017, and then all of a sudden now that they're more woke, they're just going to do the list again and make Marvin Gaye like number 2 or something.
Yeah, and Joni will definitely be in the top 10.
Absolutely.
Because it's a white man at number 1. I won't tell you who, but...
Is it like Paul McCartney or something?
No, come on. No. I mean, okay, listen. I'm looking here, and I've got Neil Young After the Gold Rush is number 99.
What?
So, yeah. I'll give you kind of an example of where it goes. There's like 3 Wire albums in the top 20.
Oh, okay.
It's that era of Pitchfork.
It's like David Byrne. It's like the Talking Heads.
Really close.
Bowie, Lou Reed.
There you go.
Bowie, who had sex with a 13-year-old girl. Everybody admits it.
But think about it for a second.
Station is Station.
Nearly.
Low.
Yeah. Number 1 album of the 70s.
Well, it's because it's so experimental with Eno, man.
Oblique Strategies.
The B-side. Have you guys done Low yet? Great record.
We're doing it right now, man.
We were going to do it, and then we read that list.
Eno's Another Green World, number 10. Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures, number 9. Right. Gang of 4 Entertainment, number 8.
Better than Blue by a lot.
Better than every Neil Young album he ever made.
Better than any Marvin Gaye record.
Because
Led Zeppelin 4, interesting, number 7.
That's because they had to put it on. They needed one stock.
That's edgelord shit, putting that in there. Okay, Kraftwerk, Trans-Europe Express, number 6. Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks, number 5. Not complaining there. Sly and the Family Stone, there's a riot going on. Is there
that's their political choice.
That's just so that no one can say they didn't put a black artist in the top 5.
Exactly.
And choosing that record, it's like, it was topical, it was meaningful.
Yeah. I've never heard it, but
we were doing the Pitchfork board meeting. It's like, okay, you guys, now this one, it's got an American flag on the cover. It seems a bit controversial. Haven't heard it, but let's go with it. Yeah.
Well, I heard that guy lives in a car underneath by the LA River now. Yeah, that works for us.
Great story. Yeah.
Number 3, Marquee Moon. Number 2, London
Great record,
Calling.
But
Number 2, London Calling. Number 1, David Bowie. Love.
Who wrote this list? I mean, it might be Bleeker's friend.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think I have very few. Maybe I have some acquaintances who are left there.
I remember when we first met, you guys kind of there was an office in Brooklyn, right down the street from where Jonah and a lot of those people lived. And if you had a new record out, you just had to walk down the street and knock on the door and tell them to review it.
Yeah, but they didn't have a turntable, so you had to bring it on CD.
Nice. I tell you, it's really interesting. I'm going through this right now. Really new wave heavy, because the top Buzzcock singles going steadies at 16.
Well, where are all the Velvet Underground records? I mean, those have to be.
Loaded's at 14.
That's all 60s. That's all 60s.
But Loaded is 70.
Yeah, you got
so
that's
Funhouse
is Stooges. Funhouse 12. Pink Moon by Nick Drake at number 13. That's a bit of a soft boy one there.
Well, that's like Pitchfork 2001.
It's
they
totally
still
clap
they
your
have
hands,
that
say yeah
contingency.
kind
That's
of
like when
the
microphones, the Glow Part 2 was the #1 Pitchfork record. Those are like the Nick Drake fans that are still around.
I was more of a kind of live in Japan microphones guy.
No disrespect, Phil Alvarez.
He's just between me and you right now, somewhere in Anacortes, isn't
Pacific Northwest guy, yeah.
This is a weird one, though. This is one that somehow... This is a complete... This is actually the weirdest one of the top 20. Disregard all the other ones. At number 15, The Who. Who's Next?
Ugh. Not really a big Who guy.
Lame. What a weird record to put in. That's never been in any top 20.
Do you think they just took the Rolling... Because actually, like, I didn't even have to Google American Beauty because I've listened to it so many times and I'm a huge Dead nerd, so I actually know a lot of stuff about it. Unlike the last time I was on the show, and I just Googled, Googled Van Morrison Dead and found out some stuff about him.
That's how we've been doing it for so long.
James... sorry, go ahead.
No, but I did Google the record today anyway, and the Rolling Stone, it was number 78 on the Rolling Stones top records of the 70s. So do you think that Pitchfork just took that list and was like, let's shuffle it and make it cool?
I don't think so, because there's a lot of fucking and then let's add in new wave.
Well, they were like, let's just do it, but like the indie hipster, like do the list that you would tell people if you met them in a bar for them to think you were cool.
But they were cross-checking the Rolling Stone one, definitely.
And being they put Neil Young in the top 10, so obvious. Let's do Can, Tago Mago.
Tago Mago and Eggy Bamyashi.
Not a bad record.
But two Can records in the top 30? I don't know
where does Noi fall in there?
Noi, there was a...
They're on there.
Faust, okay. Neuer at 25.
Yeah.
25, yeah.
The first one? The red one?
The first one, Yeah, a bit of a Hallo Gallo kind of vibe,
James,
honestly, I just got to say, sorry, I'm actually more of a Michael Rota solo records guy.
Absolutely. Much more of a Pitchfork take as well, too.
Yeah. Interesting. You've been listening to Noi. Yeah, no, I like them, but I just prefer Michael Rota's work after.
I like Flamandenhausen. I like when he performs with Steve Shelley of Sonic
Stone Thaler, I think, as well. Flamandenhausen's really good, though, actually.
It is good. Great record.
We should do that. No
disrespect to Michael Roth.
Welcome to the Pitchfork podcast.
You guys should go through the whole Pitchfork 70s list.
By the end of it, I could agree with it. Let It Be is the highest ranking Beatles record.
Well, there's the only one in the 70s.
Yeah, I guess that's why.
But it wasn't even...
Got my ass there, John.
It wasn't recorded...
it came out in 1970. That was the only one that did.
Released posthumously.
Yeah. To answer your question, James, please subscribe to Rolling Stone with our Patreon money so that we can.
That's less toll, boys.
This is where.
How much is it per month?
I don't know, like $5. It's quite expensive. Did you hear about what they're doing now on Rolling Stone, where you can pay to be a writer? You can pay. So this is like a new format of journalism. You can pay $2,000 and publish whatever fucking article you want in Rolling Stone.
This is actually true.
Yeah, apparently this is like a new kind of like style of journalism they're moving towards. Is like you fund the like, magazine existing.
Keep us in print. You pay us.
Yeah, I imagine it's so like Taylor Swift can just buy the whole the whole thing.
Oh, that's like a new form of payola. Yeah. I didn't even think of that. I just thought of boomers who would like get a kick of having a byline in RollingStone.com.
That would rule.
Because that's all. They're not gonna. They're like, for $50,000, we can print your name.
I'll tell you right now, if boomers were writing articles just for fun and it was getting put in Rolling Stone, I would rather read that than actual Rolling Stone reviews from right now. Okay. I think it'd be like reading the YouTube comments, how I always do, and they're so funny.
Can I read you this one quickly? At number 35, the pop group Why, the album. Do you know this one?
No.
Me neither. I actually genuinely don't, and I'm really into kind of this sort of scene.
Why the band? Why?
No, the pop group of the band, and their album Why.
This is on Rolling Stone or Pitchfork?
This is Pitchfork. Listen to this. Listen to this.
That's their left field record collector choice.
Listen to this.
35.
This really, really nails when in history this was written. 25 years ago, after their untimely implosion, the pop group's lacerated funk had begun to make a noticeable dent in the indie strata. The Bristol punk band's train-wrecked opus has been co-opted and realized by the more nefarious members of The Liars, known for their 2001 disco punk revival record. They threw us in a trench and stuck a monument on top.
But this is not long ago.
This is so brutal.
This reads like 2004 or something.
Yeah, this is. I mean, the idea that at this point, like, it's a really great thing that the Liars have co-opted your sound.
Well, that's classic rock. Pitchfork. It's so much. That's classic Pitchfork.
Dadaist malice and contempt.
That's great.
That sounds like a random Pitchfork review word generator.
Yeah, number 34.
It does.
Saturday Night Fever.
That's good.
Good record.
Where does American Beauty rank?
Not on there.
It's on question. It's on it.
Okay, I'll go back and we'll...
I think it's like number 92 or something.
Because I know nothing about this record, so you guys just...
I think James is trying to read the whole list for the whole episode.
Right, you just don't want to actually talk about...
I'm on to him, man. Let's just do that bit again. That worked.
Hey, how you guys feel about me? Do you want me? Okay, how about you feel about me?
I know all about the Dead, man. You talk to Jerry, dude?
Should we just pivot and do Can't Buy a Thrill instead, like we were going to, or
I've just found
how are you guys feeling?
I'm good. I've just found a third Can record on here, number 56. Future Days is on here, so that's cool. Second Nick Drake record. Yeah, okay. There's been one black artist in the top 40 so far. Faust, 69, Johnny.
Yeah. Oh, they made it. 69.
Yeah.
I love it that the only Big Star record is Sister Lovers. Hell yeah.
That's very Pitchfork take.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a little segue here that's going to get you fired up, James.
Has it got anything to do with the Pitchfork Top 100?
In a sense.
Okay.
No, it doesn't actually at all.
No, okay, go on, sorry.
But because I know you'll want to get into a lot more stuff to do with this, but I read this interview really recently with David Crosby about Jerry Garcia.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hilarious things in it, and I made note of all of them. But I like this part a lot. It says, do you remember where you were in 1995 when you heard that he died? And he says, yes, I was at a friend's house on an island up there in Maine outside of Portsmouth, and I came back in on a boat from their house to town. One of the networks had brought an uplink to talk to me about it.
Oh.
I just like that he slipped that in. He doesn't really say what happened, but he mentions how a major network brought an uplink just to get his remote take on Jerry's death.
All the way on an island off the coast of Maine. Well,
exactly.
Yeah. Cross. Pretty central to the story of this record,
It's like,
I got a lot of Cross to come today. I've been really enjoying his Twitter the last couple of days.
I went to see Cross solo a couple of years ago at the Castro Theater, San Francisco. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Phil Lesh up in the balcony.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the few classic records that has not been estranged from Cross. Although Cross was playing with like nameless people in their early 30s. Like weird Northern California hippies.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah,
one of them looks like Epstein.
He's like, now we're going to do one of Jenna's songs. It's really beautiful.
Ooh,
I saw a thing earlier on that he wrote where, and this is one of, I've got a lot of Crosby lined up, but it's kind of similar to what you're saying. Someone wrote on Twitter that Joni Mitchell is the second best American, or best songwriter, best North American songwriter. And he
Canadian, come on.
Yeah, but North American. I mean, we got into this actually with recently, I think with Dan Horn, who said, Californians think of her as Californian. Which it was an interesting take.
We've adopted her,
Yeah. Do you think of yourself as Californian?
Yeah, exactly.
No,
That's a hot take. They're
no.
we.
Yeah,
the Americans.
What do all your Jersey boys think of this whole?
I don't think of
weed
myself
talk?
as California. Back up. Stop trying to corner me here.
This is hard. This is hard-nosed journalism.
I'm
here,
just talking about the United States.
You said
of
it,
America.
buddy. You said
I speak on behalf of the country. Not
How do you think
state.
Tico Torres feels about that? How do you think Springsteen feels about that?
What about Glenn Mercer of the Feelies? They're all going to disown me.
Wait, James, did you finish that joke?
No, the joke is that someone wrote about how good Joni Mitchell was, and his response was, "She's definitely better than me, and quite a lesson in humility being her boyfriend."
What? They dated?
He's putting it out there right now, just letting everyone know that in something that happened maybe 50 years ago, it's still worth bragging about.
How many members of CSNY did she date then? By
Definitely
Cros's
two.
count?
I mean, definitely.
3 maybe.
No, I don't think she ever dated Neil or
But
Stills. I was actually thinking that Stills is kind of like asexual. I was just thinking, like, you never hear anyone
heard of him being
ever
with a woman or a man.
No, he's just kind of like focused on the music and on war.
Well, he's the military plant.
Yeah, he's focused. Yeah, he's strategic. He's like the Alan Dulles of the Laurel Canyon scene.
Hey, Bleeker, I just wanted to welcome you to our show here.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be back.
For everybody,
as always.
everybody listening, I just want to say that this is our second non-Patreon episode in a row on the Grateful Dead. And we had, last Wednesday, we had Dan Horn of the Grateful Shred. Actually grew up in Palo Alto, kind of a legendary modern Dead character.
Yeah, rival bass player, much better bass player than me. Far
And
better, technically speaking.
Do you consider yourselves rivals?
I sort of thought of this.
Actually, it's there. It is.
I
there.
thought of this, that you guys are the two biggest kind of Deadheads that I know. You're both bass players, sort of different sides of the coin a little bit. You know what I mean?
We've played together. There's a video of it.
Oh, really?
Although I'm aware of him and his projects. I feel relatively certain that he's aware of me, though I don't think that he would necessarily acknowledge me or that. Like, he's so cool. He's way cooler than I am, I think. He's got... and
I don't know, man. You're Pitchfork cool.
Yeah, which is...
East Coast, dude. It's different vibe.
Speaks for a lot.
You're East Coast. You're more East Coast.
You're more kind of like the band, Tim Panally.
I think there was a...
Neil Diamond. He's more kind of...
He's more like, dance.
John Phillips.
Yeah, he's more kind of like, he's still rocking the look and the vibe.
I don't know if he's rock. It's not a look. I think it feels authentic with him.
No, it is authentic, but that's what I mean. Like,
he's keeping the scene alive.
Yeah.
He's obviously made so much amazing music and done it, but he's like, kind of, you've done a lot. He's sort of staying true to the vibe in a very deep way.
Whereas you've kind of gone more into like the Ashram Swami kind of return to innocence kind of energy of Northern California, Yeah, you have gone back to the land.
I'm here. I got nothing to prove anymore. I've already.
You're basically in a vortex.
Don't get
energy
me wrong.
vortex.
I got a bit of a hot take here.
Okay.
Real estate, bit of a Dead vibe though.
Definitely. Intentionally so always.
That's cool.
Yes, and the
Phil Zone.
There's a song that you guys lifted from an intro to a Dead song, and I've always noticed it. There's a song on, the Live Dead album, the one at the Fillmore with the Skull and Roses album.
Do you mean Skull and yeah, okay, or do you mean Live Dead?
Not Live Dead, Skull and Roses. That one that has got like Bertha and Mama Tried and all those songs.
Yeah.
There's a song on it, I think it's called maybe Coming Around.
It's called the other one.
Yeah, the other one.
Yeah.
And there's a guitar. It starts out, there's a single note bass line and a guitar line that is very similar to the start of a Real Estate song.
Are you thinking of like, I'm curious to know, do you mean like that's all for the other? See, this is the point where I'm like, this Dead song, and you're like, I don't know. It's got.
I'm gonna find it out and text you because, I think it's rad because it's not the whole song. Like, it's not like Real Estate to lifted the whole song, but the beginning of the song is like a total.
I'm pretty sure you're talking about the intro to that song, which is That's All for the Other One.
Right.
And that has a bit of a Real Estate-y vibe, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. I could see that. I don't know if, I'm like the resident deadheader in Real Estate and always like trying to pushing it.
I love
further.
This one? Is it this one?
I don't think
you gotta. That's Billy Kreutzmann.
No, it's called The Other One. Actually,
well,
not
this is live at the Fillmore.
But listen, The Other One. This is here when I get into a little bit of technical.
It's like just a drum solo.
I got into some deadology. Well, Bill Kreutzmann, co-writer on the song The Other One, so he likes to take his drum solo. But
it's not the same. It's similar.
There's a song. Doesn't matter. Your listeners who like the Dead will know this. It's like elementary, and those who don't won't care. But what I think you mean is like is kind of it's a prefix to that song called That's All for the Other One.
That's it.
For the big drum solo, like
it's a prefix. Yeah, it is a prefix.
Yes.
And then it was a tune you guys did when we were on tour, and I just always thought it was a clever. Yeah, exactly. It was a clever...
I actually don't know. I don't know which Real Estate song you're talking about, but
I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to send them both to you. It's probably subconscious, but I always thought it was a very clever and tasteful lift. And believe me, let me preface all of this, I should have, by saying that anybody who listens to this, who listens to my music, can find a lot of that kind of stuff. So, and any music, really.
I'm fucking out there, man.
Full on original. Yeah. Well, the Dead actually didn't do that. And as David Crosby points out, I just wanted you guys. So, do you remember, James, when we had Dan Horn on, and I was asking what kind of music do the Grateful Dead make?
Yeah,
couldn't quite. And Dan was kind of like, it's rock and roll, man. Which is true. But I thank you to David Crosby, if you're listening, for explaining it to me. Because in this interview, he explains it. He says it's...
Wait. But can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Can you ask me the same question?
Oh, what kind of music?
Get my take, and then we'll see how it lines up with Cross.
Okay, Alex. Yeah. So I've been listening to this band. They're called the Grateful Dead lately. Because we were doing this podcast. Don't know much about them. And I was wondering if you could tell me what kind of music they play.
Yeah, okay. So these are guys. I'm going to answer in the context of the record American Beauty here.
Okay,
thank you.
Group of misfits, really, rebels, who
rebel rousers,
who were really interested in like really early roots Americana folk music when that was cool in the early 60s, sort of the parallel Greenwich Village but happening out in Palo Alto, California version of that, like Jerry Garcia, Robert Hunter trying to be punk and cool in the folk scene or achieving it. Jerry, the best banjo player in the North Bay or in the Bay Area. Right. Then they meet up. Then Kesey comes to Palo Alto.
Yeah.
They fall in love with acid because they're naturally predisposed to it.
Through Bear as well, probably.
Well, he's definitely a big part of the story, which there's some Steely Dan crossover there, and we could go all over them.
I'd love to know about that. Let's remember that.
But yeah, so they turn into a acid drug dealing crime syndicate, and the music gets extraordinarily psychedelic through this acid filter, kind of blues, garage rock, uptown Mother McCree's jug band type of thing.
Nice.
Then they start hanging out with Crosby. Jerry picks up the pedal steel. He plays the intro to Teach Your Children. They're signed to Warner Brothers because Acid Heads love them, and Warner Brothers is like, just reserve that band on spec. But they're not making any money doing this crazy acid psych thing. They see that CSNY are getting rich. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, let's just play some fucking easy folk songs like we used to do.
Interesting.
And then that's where you arrive at this point in their history. And it goes on from there. But I feel like they're actually amazing folk players with other weird shit, like with Phil Lesh, like weird music concrete shit mixed into. We could go and spin.
Hey, man.
That's my interpretation.
All due respect, brother.
Yeah.
You didn't answer the question. I said what kind of music?
This is answer.
I wanted genre.
It's folk music through an acid lens.
Okay, well, let me tell you.
That's the Pitchfork review.
Let me tell you, David Crosby's the only one who's got this answer because Dan Horn's wasn't any good either. And this one is I appreciated the history there.
No,
that
certainly do appreciate it.
But so he says it's 4 running streams of melody at the same time. It's the lead guitar, the second guitar, the bass, and the keyboard. They're all playing a melodic line at the same time all the time. That's Dixieland. The trombone and the clarinet and the trumpet and the sax. They're all playing melody at the same time. That's what the Grateful Dead is doing, playing 4 rambling, running, explosive, inventive lines of melody at the same time. I call it electronic Dixieland.
He's right. He's actually right. Yeah.
And David Crosby knows a lot about music because this week on Twitter, he made it known that he thinks that Bob Dylan lacks musical sophistication.
Oh, God.
And when he was pinned down on it, he said, try listening to Steely Dan. That's sophistication. Dylan's lyrics, sure, they're sophisticated, but his melodies and chord changes are nowhere near, not even close. Musically, I am better than him. Many of us are.
Wow. That is just...
It's funny when you when you say that about someone who it's so delusional because Dylan wrote all of his first hits.
Dylan made Crosby famous.
Yeah, I think so. I was wondering about the relationship between the only band I can think of that sound like the Grateful Dead are The Band.
Yeah.
With Dylan.
I think the Dead's best material sounds a lot like The Band.
Yeah.
My favorite stuff of theirs.
In Johnny, you missed out when you were going to crack. I was just saying the only band I can think of that sound like the Grateful Dead are The Band.
I actually listened to this record to prepare for this podcast, and I was thinking about the song Operator, Pigpen's only contribution to the Grateful Dead in terms of songwriting.
I enjoyed that one.
Didn't he die just after it?
He died just after this record, 2 years after the record came out. But like that song, I was like, oh, this could be like a basement tape song.
Yeah.
Like super, does not like a typical what you think of Grateful Dead classic tune, but I actually imagined it in that context of like,
I think that's a really hot take, and I think that, as we mentioned with Dan Horn, it's the same story of guys who live together in a house and make music and just rock and jam all the time. And I think you get that kind of stuff where you're not afraid to do a lot of experimentation and a lot of different styles of music, whereas both the Dead and the Band. I actually thought that your like sort of history of their musicality was really interesting.
I was into
Alex,
it.
because I think a lot about the fact that they were a group that had all of this stuff that they were into, but then when the scene came around and everybody decided, let's put on funny uniforms and have haircuts and like get into like the mainstream scene and make money off it, they were just like, well, we're still kind of into the music and the drugs, and we're just going to do our thing and just keep blending and evolving. And like you say, the story just goes on and on.
But if you keep blending and blending, you end up with this.
Then you keep blending, and
I don't want this. Okay, yeah, I understand that, but I think what Alex just said is the exact opposite of that, which is American Beauty and Working Man's Dead are like their attempts to cash in.
I mean, the narrative of those records
at that time. Yeah,
I'm gonna go out probably not so hot take. I think maybe not from a songwriting perspective, but production. American Beauty is a better record than Working Man's Dead. Like.
Yeah,
by
so
a wide
too.
margin.
I think so too.
Where are you at on Mars Hotel?
I'm like not a huge studio Dead guy beyond those two records. I like Blues for Allah a lot, actually. There's kind of some weird production stuff on it. But I think what I was going to say about this record is like, this is kind of the only time in the Dead's history that they chose to stay home and make an album and not go on tour. And and it shows, it's like a good record. And all the records after this one are sort of, they're like, oh, let's put something down. It'll be fun. They're kind of like afterthoughts, the production of them.
Yeah, I guess what I mean is that, like, I do agree that these are more commercial records and they made that call. You're right. But I mean, like, when it was all exploding, that they weren't doing what everybody else was doing, all those bands. Like, and have you heard the stories about when they got the money from Warner to go in the studio? They just fucked around. Like, they did not give a fuck. Like, they were just it was the biggest budget Warner Brothers had ever spent on a recording project for the first Dead album. And it was, like, they really...
That's like the Bob Weir he wants the sound of heavy air story.
Yeah.
He's in the studio. And they're like, what we'll do is we'll go out to Death Valley and we'll record that air, and then we'll come back on the top of Mount Tamalpais and we'll record that air, and that'll be like the rhythm track.
That's the rhythm track.
Yeah.
The fucking rules.
And then the Warner Brothers, famously wrote to them about how they needed to like get their act together, and they corrected it in red ink and sent it back to them. I mean, that's the thing about the dichotomy between punks and the Dead is like, you don't understand. This is a fucking punk band. These guys are a drug dealing weirdo warehouse band.
Yeah, totally. I mean, case in point, why weren't they at the Last Waltz? You know what I mean? Outsiders.
I mean, they were not really outside.
With the band, yeah.
What's funny is that Crosby took to them, though. Crosby hung with them super fucking hard.
Yeah.
And other than that, they were just their own universe. They were like too weird, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that actually American Beauty.
Who else? Who else wasn't at the Last Waltz?
Who?
Clapton.
David Crosby.
No, he wasn't.
And Clapton.
Yeah. Clapton was there, buddy.
He was there.
Well, Crosby, I mean, James, you just said what he thinks of Bob Dylan, man. I mean, that's Dylan's world.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
Like, that's not... Dylan's but Stills world. Was there.
At the end, blues jamming.
He shows up to do a blues
But Dylan and the Dead, I mean, I'm assuming you've both read Chronicle. Do you remember...
Yeah.
Do you remember the Dead portion of Chronicle?
Yeah. No, I don't remember.
I've
not read it since I was like 18 years
old. I read it, but yeah. Tell me.
He credits them with reigniting his spark for live music.
That rules.
He's like, it was the 80s. I didn't care. I play, because one thing that, they have a commitment to like never do the same thing twice. That's the crossover between Dylan and the Dead, right?
Right.
Also the fact that Jerry's a huge Dylan fan and played tons of Dylan songs, But like, when they played together, Dylan was like, it was cool. These guys were just doing whatever the fuck they wanted. Like, he loved it. They get like a chapter in Chronicle.
What's with them getting huge in the 80s, like after like not being?
The Dead?
Yeah, what's with that? It's kind of interesting trajectory.
I think it was like...
They had a hit with Touch of Grey.
But before that, they were huge.
But the stadium kind of like nostalgia hippie kind of stuff maybe like leaned into or something? The scene got kind of commodified?
Got pretty fratty.
Yes.
I don't know if it ever...
That's it.
I don't know if
that's it.
If it ever really got commodified. They didn't change anything. It's just like the frat boys turned on and started to party and take acid.
Yeah.
Like a Dead show is like a soul party for white people. Right? Like,
yes.
It's
Hell
a place.
Yeah, dude.
It's a place where you can dance and not be self-conscious about dancing, which is very powerful for white people because white people, we don't get into those spaces that often, And so the frat boys found that, and they were like, "Fuck this! I'm feeling sensitive. This is religion. I can be free here," And it just took off.
That's so true because like my brother-in-law and my sister, who are, sort of born in the early 70s, grunge 90s university student types, love the Dead. And then in turn, like Fish and like the bands
Dave
that
Matthews.
Came out of that. And the Dave Math, you know what I mean? But that was all, you're right. It was that definite university student energy that latched onto it. Yeah.
And, it's weird because like I that connects me to the frat boys in a way. Like, it's weird, but I'm like, instead of being like, oh, fuck you, you don't belong in this scene, I'm like, okay, well, same religion, you know, we're cool. You want to dance to Jerry's guitar solo? Let's do it. There's something.
Did you ever go to any of those parties?
I never saw Jerry Garcia play live, but I've seen a ton of, like, you know, the we could do a whole episode on like what the Grateful Dead is now. It's like still a thing.
Where do you rank Mayer?
I'm not a Mayer guy.
You talking
actually.
Mayer, dude?
What's that?
You talking Mayer right now?
Here's what I'll say for Mayer.
What? Sorry, when you just said how the Grateful Dead are still as relevant as they ever were, you were talking about John Mayer, right?
You're putting words in my mouth.
I feel like Charlie Rose right now.
No, Charlie Rose never does that. He's a good boy. He says he only asks leading questions that are like things like I don't know. So tell me, what are your favorite 3 Grateful Dead solos are? You know, that kind of thing. Real cokey questions. Yeah. Nothing controversial.
No, but okay, tell us about Mayer. What were you
I'm
saying?
I'm more into like the nerdy, like it's kind of like AAA baseball, you know, and if you play your and like
shred, dude.
Right now, single A ball is Mayer, unfortunately, you know.
Yeah.
But there's all kinds of farm teams, of which I participate in that world. You know, like I played with Bill Kreutzmann once. It's on YouTube. You can look it up. You know, but
where do you rank the shred?
The shred are great. They're great. You know,
have you seen them live?
I have seen some videos online, and they're a great band. I mean, there's this whole like. These are the bands that hipsters like. You know,
they do rip though, dude.
They rip. They rip, and they're great. And I would have a fantastic time with it. My favorite Dead music playing band in the game today is a band called Richard Pictures. I'll plug them. Formerly known as Dick Pics, currently known as Richard Pictures.
Interesting.
They're my fave.
Where are they based out of?
Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Kind of.
So does rival Dead bands in LA?
This is what I'm saying.
This is very heated, man. This is gonna be.
Well, and I don't think any of them. Well, I'm cool with the Richard Pictures guy now, but I don't think any of them like me that much because I don't really do it anymore. But I was like a guy in an indie band playing Dead songs a little earlier, I would say, and like champion and like going to like real jam band shit. Like I like Fish. I'm like going to like I'm not trying to be cool. Like I'm seeing.
You ever been to Red Rocks and watched Fish?
I would love. I wish I had.
Or the Gorge.
I've played there, but never seen Fish there. It's a.
I know you played
man?
there.
I'd rather see Fish at Red Rocks than play there.
That's cool.
I think Jerry would really respond to your take, man. I think he'd be into it all too. I think that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's Cass McCombs is somebody who can enter into the conversation. I really like the way he interacts with that whole universe too.
Well, that's the Dan Horn connection too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You guys would love. We're gonna all get together when this whole thing's over, and we're just gonna get together and jam on fucking.
Probably
Sugar
Blues,
Magnolia.
Probably some blues, honestly.
When my solo band, The Freaks, came to play with the Shilohs in Vancouver, or maybe we were just hanging out. I don't remember. But
I opened solo, I think.
Even before that, though. Earlier.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it was that
I don't
time.
remember.
We're all obsessed with the Dead, in particular in this period, except for our keyboard player who hates them. Right? He's clinging to this old like, I am alternative and intellectual, and the Dead are not cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's kind of more on the like Pitchfork Top 100 of the 70s kind of approach.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to throw him under the bus here or anything, but but perhaps maybe at that time, And then so you guys pile into our van, and we're talking about the Dead come up or something, and somebody, maybe it's Dan Calusi or something. Somebody's saying something that sounds like you're making fun of us. Like, oh, what are you guys listening to? Like 77 or 72, you know? And he starts laughing like, it is literally like that in this car. Like, and then Dan turns out he's like, no, I mean it. It's an earnest question. Like,
yeah,
this is how I feel. Also, you know, it's pretty funny.
Oh, me and the Shilohs we were big. You know, let me tell you something right now. If you're cruising down a highway in California and you're 4 guys from Canada and you're heading down to LA to play a rock and roll show, nothing gets you fired up like throwing on the Dead and just putting the windows down.
So what
light
is
up
that?
a J, man, and just cruise. Oh, that's the best. There's no better American highway music, in my opinion, than putting on like a live Dead album and just cruising.
That's what it is. It's uniquely American. You know?
Yeah.
Cosmic American music.
Like
Truly.
the band, kind of, as much as they're Canadian, like I feel like the band is American in that way too.
I think
like,
they're East Coast and West Coast like counterparts.
It's kind of like a hip hop feud.
The band, exactly. They're in Woodstock. The Dead, they're in Marin County. You know.
Did you guys know though that actually Crosby, Stills, and Nash taught the Dead how to play music?
Crosby himself.
I didn't know this until I read this interview with David Crosby today.
Crosby denies that, doesn't he?
Well,
he says like, we didn't teach them shit.
Well, he denies it, but then you got to read between the lines, Bleeker,
okay.
because he says, you know, people started this whole thing about how the Grateful Dead learned how to sing harmony from Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Bullshit. We didn't teach them how to sing harmony. They knew already. What happened was we listened to their music and it affected us. We realized we could get a lot looser than we were. Looser. Keyword there. Read between the lines here. They listened to our music and they realized they could get a lot more organized than they were vocally. They knew they could do the same stuff we were doing, just not quite as well. They're not as good of singers as we are, but they're just as inventive as we are and just as good of musicians. just as good. Of musicians.
Yeah,
The Dead are just as good as Crosby, Stills, Nash at music.
Who do you think is better at guitar, Jerry Garcia or Stephen Stills?
And the funny thing about that interview is earlier, they asked him, they were like, the interviewer, he's like, you like kind of famously had trouble jamming with the Dead though. And he's like, he's sort of tried to explain it. He's like, about how it's more to do with their time signatures, and you know, he didn't really have an instrument to contribute.
It's more about kind of Mixolydian.
It's a lot about Mixolydian.
For sure.
And Crosby was like, you know, maybe vocally I could contribute. He was like, maybe vocally something. But.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I just want to say one thing about Crosby's vocals, because he retweeted someone who said this week. You made the Byrds a 3rd-part harmony band with just the second harmony line, as you did with CSN. I can only imagine what the Beatles would have sounded like with you. The harmonies would have exploded exponentially. The mind boggles at the possibility.
The Beatles never invited Crosby to sing on it.
Strange, isn't it, that they didn't?
Never did.
It's also strange that the Beatles never had a middle harmony in any song ever. Yeah. You know.
I'm going to hot take here. I don't think the Byrds did. I think they're a 2-harmony band, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Kind of in a real estate style. You know, you'll pop the third one in, but you're mostly a 2-part harmony band.
Turn. I think there's a third
only
in there.
on record.
I know. I've seen you guys a few times doing it. I've seen you singing up there.
I've seen you singing, buddy. I always liked when you took the lead.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you saying so.
That's kind of like, you know, the cool when Pigpen steps in and does Operator on the album, you know?
I'm definitely like the Pigpen Phil James McNew member of
Nice.
Real Estate.
You know the song? I listened to American Beauty today by the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it.
Is that what we're talking about?
And I heard this song on it. I really liked it when, watch out the candy man.
Good one, right?
I was like, hey, what do you think this song's about? The Candy Man.
Classic, man.
Yeah, baby.
Classic
dude.
drug pusher tune.
Yeah, dude. The Pusher Man.
I think I mean and okay, so let me segue here because I've got a question for Jay to sort of bring you in on where I think some of your Northern California interests might lie.
Do you have any questions for me too?
I think that you're like, I'm just trying to bring Jay into the Dead world. I'm trying to pull him off Crosby because I
got all kinds of questions here for all you guys here. I mean, this is for James, this one's for you, and I don't know what.
What about Robert Hunter in the scope of the scene of Northern California poetry and literature?
Well, we talked about that stuff with Dan Horn a little bit just about how it's really cool that the Dead, like, they all have their own poet writing partner.
Right.
Like, so Robert Hunter, obviously, like in there because of like Dark Star and stuff. I guess like Truckin' maybe off this record is him.
Hunter wrote a lot of the lyrics.
I'm just thinking about like this record. It's Truckin', isn't it?
He also wrote Box of Rain. He co-wrote Sugar Magnolia. I mean, Hunter is all over.
He's kind of the Bernie Taupin.
He wrote Candyman.
Yeah, on this one, he co-wrote with all of them, right?
And I like it that they're in that kind of scene where they have their own kind of like, because it makes sense, because it is the Northern California thing that they're kind of in that thing where it's like, listen, we're playing the music here. We're from, we've been hanging around North Beach or the Tenderloin for all this time. We're around poets. I mean, we're at Vesuvio's or like, Enrico's. Let's get those guys to do it. It makes sense. I think it's really cool.
Think about the Dead as the musical bridging of the gap from like the North Beach scene. You know, like Neil Cassidy driving the bus, literally
with Kesey.
Yeah,
yeah, the Merry Pranksters and all that stuff. I don't know.
And they cross over there with Dylan too, right?
Well, then I think Well, Ginsberg is the glue. As always.
Yeah,
he's in all the scenes.
You're never going to get me away from Crosby because actually just this week he was talking about Ginsberg. Allen Ginsberg is a big Crosby fan and a regular, dancing like madman, sweet human, thorny sometimes though.
He just tweeted that like non sequitur. Just wanted to talk about Ginsberg.
This is actually he tweeted that. What's the date today? He tweeted this on the 5th. So someone asked him about Ginsberg, I guess. So Ginsberg, tell me why Ginsberg is the glue here.
I think Ginsberg's kind of like the ultimate scenester for the Boomer era. Well,
you mean because of Howl and how definitive it was with the censorship stuff and
and him and also him just like being around in all of these sort of like white countercultural scenes like Ginsberg.
Yeah, he was kind of in
He's
them
on
all.
the East Coast with Kerouac in Greenwich Village. He figures prominently in Dharma Bums. He comes out to SF. He's hanging with Ferlinghetti,
Leary and stuff.
And Kesey and Leary's like a dichotomy, but Ginsberg can hang in both scenes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. And then he gets really into the Indian ashram stuff.
Can he? Like he can, I guess. He just is there.
He's there.
Like that's the thing with Ginsberg. Like he definitely is. The perception is that he can hang in all these scenes, but then a lot of stuff keeps hanging out that he was kind of like a bit of a tag along kind of guy. Sometimes,
yeah, maybe he pushed his way in, but they let him in.
Of course,
he went to. He was with Paul Bowles in Morocco too. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
He got around a lot.
Yeah, and over the course of 20, 30 years too.
But I think like he's hanging with Dylan in Backrooms. He's also hanging with the Dead. He's sort of like
he's everywhere, man.
I like that story about him with John Lennon, where John and Bob Dylan were hanging out backstage, and then Ginsberg was stoned and fell in John Lennon's lap, and he said, "Do you like William Blake?" And John Lennon said, "Never heard of him." And then John Lennon's wife, Cynthia, said, "Oh, John, stop lying."
Yeah, right.
Well,
that's all I got.
He introduced Dylan and the Beatles, apparently. Yeah.
Big Queen,
I thought that happened when Dylan picked up. My Aunt Jeannie told me that Dylan... I've never heard this story before, but she seems to know a lot of stuff about this because she kind of got around in those days with a lot of these types of personalities. She told me that Bob Dylan picked up the Beatles in a limo the first time they met with a suitcase full of cocaine. and that's how it happened.
I mean, if that's not true, I don't want to know what's true.
Isn't there footage of them? Cocaine wasn't really like super in vogue in like '65, was it?
Pretty early, yeah.
Maybe my.
I think that it definitely was.
Yeah, maybe my understanding of the drug scene in relationship to rock and roll is just very like ABC, the '60s.
I
style.
think that was something.
Real.
I know that was something that I thought for a long time too. And the more I read and look, I think that cocaine was around like way before that, even.
Your family's also from Cuba.
Yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with it.
No, but I think I'm thinking Scarface, kind of Miami. It's Criteria Studios.
Well, it's definitely around, right? Because you've got all those 30s and 40s blues songs about it,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when did it cross over into the
Well, I know Paul
glamour of like white boy rock and roll?
Paul was famously doing coke during Sgt. Pepper's. He said that in many interviews.
That makes sense.
That was like throughout all the sessions he was doing it. So I don't know. I would imagine the dabbling and experimentation of it came sometime before that. But
you think the Dead are like more of a they're like a more real deal acid band with the Beatles than the Beatles, who were just kind of faking it, except for George, right? I mean, what do we think?
I don't think anybody can go toe to toe with the Dead on acid.
Yeah, right.
I don't think even Crosby says, even Crosby says, like, I did it all the time, but not as much as Jerry. So I think that if Crosby's saying that somebody did more drugs than him, they're probably the top all time.
I was actually mad today. I was like, if Jerry had just lived to be 65, I would have seen him play.
For sure.
It bummed me out.
I remember being really bummed when I wanted to see James Brown before he died. Even though he was really old, he was going to play at the River Rock Theater in Vancouver, like a casino. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go. And I didn't go. And it was on December 15th or something. And I was like, I didn't go. And then he died on December 23rd of that year.
How did he die?
I don't know, but I remember being really sad in a similar way. Not that he would have been any good, but it was one of those things that it was like, yeah, he would have just liked. You would have been great. You would have liked to just see it,
He was always great. I mean,
Of course.
I don't know. Wasn't he like arrested with crack like that same year or something?
Yeah, he
was living hard.
He had that whole PCP thing where he was like secretly being given PCP without him knowing it for a long time too.
Just to like keep the performances up.
Yeah, and he started getting like really psychotic, and they didn't know why, and he just that kind of thing.
Greatest performer that ever lived, in my opinion. I can't think of any better performer.
I won't argue with you.
I think number one with a bullet.
Really? I have a question. What do you guys? Maybe you're.
What about the OCs?
I actually, I thought about them today in relationship to this podcast.
Oh yeah,
really?
Yeah, I was like, oh, what's an outlier song on American Beauty? Till the Morning Comes. That's kind of a weird
it's a good one.
And I was like, that's kind of like the OC's garage rock, San Francisco. One,
partial lineage. They're from up there, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? This is an embarrassing.
Oh, Dwyer's ahead. Go on.
Yeah,
I got something really embarrassing to admit. My introduction to American Beauty by the Grateful Dead was from Freaks and Geeks.
Oh, really? The last episode? Yeah.
Which late '90s or early 2000s or something. I don't know. But I knew the Dead. The first song I ever learned on guitar actually was Uncle John's Band, which is on
this record,
Working Man's Dead, right?
Yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But so I didn't know American Beauty, and then Freaks and Geeks, which I fell in love with, and it just floored me. The ending with Ripple. And then I got really deep into it, But I thought
cool.
It was great use of the music. Like, it was so powerful as like as a young person to watch that and know the show was over, and for them to sort of use the music as like, I don't know, whatever they were doing.
It's a perfect way for that show to end. I'm a fan of the show.
Yeah. Oh, come on, it's a great show. But yeah, that song Ripple it's crushing at the end of that, And so I was hooked right there.
You want to know how I first heard it? Is my mom.
That's really cool.
Yeah, my mom was like, my mom one day was like, I need to hear American Beauty. And she's like, we're going to Barnes & Noble. I'm like the 7th grade, and we got in the car and we went to Barnes & Noble specifically to buy American Beauty. And we got in the car and she put it on right away. Box of Rain, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I stole the CD the next day. And that's the beginning of my dead odyssey.
Your mom's kind of like the character in Freaks and Geeks, probably.
Exactly.
Like based on that type of woman.
Counselor. Yeah.
Truckin', just classic.
Come on. Yeah.
I got to talk about it because, I still, every time I throw on Truckin', and it comes on my Spotify algorithm a lot. I think Spotify really thinks I'd like Truckin'.
Do you think that's because you do of all the prep you do for this show, and they're like, "Come on, it's a classic"?
No, I just think that all the shit that I play all leads to Truckin', and every time it comes on, I'm like, "Well, yeah, hell yeah, put it on." Whereas for some reason, it also thinks that I want to listen to "California Dreaming" by the Mamas and the Papas every third song, which is not true, even though I like it. But Truckin', man, that comes on, you just can't. You can't not kind of jive out to that one.
Someone asked David Crosby whether he was friends with John Phillips.
Okay.
And he said, no, but I lusted after Michelle Phillips like everyone else.
Like everyone else, yeah.
Like everyone else. And he got a response here from a guy called Don't Follow Leaders. And it says, oh man, like everyone else indeed. At least you were within her range. For us mortals, she was just a dream. It's weird scenes inside the gold mine, man.
Do you know what Crosby said about Fish?
What?
No, I'd like to know.
Somebody asked.
You know what? Actually, can I guess?
Yeah, please.
I would actually think he probably liked him.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
because they don't really have words and stuff.
He did a reversal on them.
Oh, with Graham Nash.
He was like, Fish is not a jam band. In order to be a jam band, you have to be a jazz level player.
What is up? What is up with him and jazz?
So he was like, you got to be jazz level players in order to really be a jam band.
Amazing.
And all these people started tweeting videos of them shredding jazz standards.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was wrong. They are jazz level players.
Well, I respect that.
Little humility there.
He considers himself a jazz level player.
Right.
Vocally.
Well, I just love the constant references just in this interview to Dixieland and all, it's just, to me, it's pretty out of control that he considers himself a jazz musician.
Maybe it's kind of because he only wrote 2 songs. So it's kind of he considers Triad and Guinevere to be his take 5. It's kind of part of the canon.
It is that he has. It's a very one-sided style of jazz that he does.
Yeah.
It is that brewback. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He doesn't really get into kind of any
kind of Georgie Fame kind of skiffle.
Yeah,
but I wonder
Georgie Fame's better than Crosby.
How he felt about Joni's jazz career.
Oh, Joni, he holds in high esteem. Yeah, I love on this interview. He's like. The best part is it's like the Rock and Roll Heaven thing, James. They ask him, they're like, who do you miss the most? And he's like, so hard to say. He says, Jimmy, Jimmy, Janice. Jim. He's like, it's as if did he hang with Jimi Hendrix?
No, never.
He's like, number 1, Jerry.
Old Jay's though.
But that's real.
Yeah, I know that's
jazz.
really like Jerry. But I wonder if Crosby's going to be welcomed into the jam and Rock and Roll Heaven,
Yeah.
I kind of feel bad that they might not need a 4th vocal part.
They need his high harmony, man. He's
middle harmony.
Middle. He doesn't do the high. It'll be
middle harmony.
I just don't know if they need an acoustic guitar percussionist up there.
He definitely is within that kind of world, that a world of percussion, people who play the acoustic more as if it's a percussion instrument. Kind of Dave Matthews kind of is in that world a bit.
Yeah, he kind of does that kind of.
It's kind of a didgeridoo.
It's this kind of like loose hand guitar playing style.
I think he refers to it as his gree gumbo ya kind of hand.
Right.
His Mamaroo kind of witch doctor night tripper hand.
I used to play the acoustic guitar as a percussion instrument before I could play it.
Just kind of around the campfire with your buddies and stuff?
I saw it, and it was a very heavy Crosby influence, actually.
You didn't even know it was yet, but it was.
I saw him do it. Does he do it in the Woodstock doc? Does he actually do it?
Yeah, I remember watching that, and oh, no, I think he might not have a guitar when they're doing Sweet Judy Blue Eyes, which interestingly...
Somebody drum on a guitar in that document.
This is our second gig ever, man. We're scared shitless.
We're scared shitless. Hey, but you know what's crazy is I was listening to Sugar Magnolia today, and I was like, there actually is a kind of a Crosby, Stills, Nash vibe when they go do 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 the Sunshine Daydream. It's the same as do 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 because there's the drum fill into that. Definitely a lineage there.
They decided to cash in with these records, and it did wonders for them. And Cross was close because he liked the acid and he liked being close to Bear.
Yeah,
and they were like, "This guy's rich. We could do that."
It is crazy that they were rich.
They were rich, and the Dead weren't yet. And they were like, and Jerry was just like, "Well, man, let's take it easy. Let's do some easy shit." You know.
Take it easy, like the Eagles did, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you guys, on that note, I think I might have to sign off here because as fun as it is when you're having fun, you know what happens when you have too much fun.
Nice.
And I'm a little, I've been eating chicken wings, chips, celery, carrots, dip. I made micheladas. You'd like that, Bleeker? Kind of a
California vibe?
Kind of California, kind of California King style.
But before you guys go, I've been dying to know, but maybe I haven't been a guest on the pod in a few weeks, so I don't know.
It's really nice to have you back, by the way. It's really nice to talk to you and to see you, and
you're a wonderful. We're gonna do Steely Dan with you. We're just waiting to get there. We're gonna do that in a couple weeks, so stick around.
I don't know if you've been served illegally by his people or anything like that, but I do. But when I was coming on today, all I was thinking about was Clapton and his perception of Jerry Garcia as a guitar player. And how threatened he must have been.
Well, it's interesting
Jerry,
because we brought this up with Dan Horn as well. Yeah. The idea of why he didn't kill Jerry. Would you consider Jerry?
Well, Jerry.
Why
Jerry
didn't kill him sooner?
Jerry,
you mean?
Jerry is dead. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Would you consider Jerry as a threat to traditional blues?
Not to traditional blues, but I think that's why he's such a threat to Clapton. Because Jerry hears Jerry.
He
not
peppers
playing,
in the Mixolydian.
And he's not playing traditional blues.
Yeah, but that's why Clapton hates him. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
bad for Clapton.
Yeah.
He's playing the notes in between the notes.
Yeah.
Clapton sees that as a threat to the pentatonic scale.
Exactly.
That he plays.
You're going to introduce white rock listeners to non-shitty blues riffs.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, you can't do that. You got to stick to the scale. We all know it.
Leave that to Ravi. Don't let it leave that to Ravi.
Right.
You do your index finger and the pinky on the 4 frets up, and then you do index ring, index ring, index ring, index pinky, index pinky.
That's all I know. That's all I can do.
You cannot stray from that. Okay.
I mean, Jerry with the half step notes, man.
Get away. Get out. Get out of it.
Well, he's got a Spanish blood, you see. He's Galician. Yeah, so he has kind of that duende intrigue. He's kind of looking out at he'll be up near you, probably looking out, at the Pacific Ocean, and he's looking at a rock, and the rock that you see, you think it's beautiful. He sees it and it's crying tears of blood for sailors that it's killed,
Yes.
That's kind of more his approach to the
San Francisco
blues.
In the Mission,
Yeah, exactly. Or he's kind of, the moon has a halo tonight, my love has died, that kind of thing.
what I will say though is that you got to give it to Clapton. He's very clever, you know. He's very clever that he spaced out his murders so much so as to not arouse suspicion. You know what I mean?
You know,
he was
Clapton
threatened by
got
Jerry.
into the heavy stuff. Jerry got into the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Can't be coincidence, you know?
Yeah. I mean, he could have. He was threatened way back.
Well, he famously kept J.J. Cale on the junk to like kind of in a Matrix style kind of battery, like to kind of harvest his songs and blues licks
until J.J. could no longer serve him.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true.
And with Jerry, you know, he was like, you know what? Clapton was kind of laughing it off. You know, he's like, oh, this guy Jerry, you know, he it's a flash in the pan. It's not going to last. Then all of a sudden it goes through the 80s. He's playing. Yeah. They're getting bigger and bigger. The shows are getting huge. Clapton gets
rainbows
big.
And
Clapton gets big again in the late 80s.
With
early
his
90s.
With his kind of blue chip blues.
Yeah.
And then he's back to his old thing. He's like, okay, I'm on top again with Unplugged, with Tears in Heaven.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want any competition. And Jerry's still out there. He's still rocking. And so he's like, enough's enough.
And you know what? You know what?
So true.
You know what did it? Touch of Grey.
I know,
Cracked
exactly.
the top 40.
Great
top 40
solo.
Hit.
Great solo, too.
First and not bluesy at all.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a threat
like, how do you do this?
The pentatonic scale.
First and only Grateful Dead top 40 hit. Poof, Jerry's gone.
It's interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Clapton's like, how did you do that without using that scale?
It's very weird. I don't know how he does it.
Neither do I. Yeah. But it's you know, blues, man.
It's all about the blues, really. When you really get down to it, it's all about the blues.
I mean, and look, Pigpen, the Grateful Dead blues man, also taken out early. So
interesting.
Something to be said there.
Well, sometimes people just die, Bleeker. Okay. I mean, we're not.
Especially when they drink a lot.
Not on this podcast. Not on this podcast, they don't.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Great to see you. We'll see you again real soon. You're one of our favorite guests.
Thanks
see you in a couple of weeks, man, and we'll do like I'm saying I want to do Asia because it sounds funnier to me, but Johnny's thinking Can't Buy It For Real.
I mean, whatever fits in for you guys. I think the funniest Dead record is Gaucho.
Oh, Dan. Yeah, Gaucho's pretty sleazy, real cokey, but Asia has got a lot of drummers on it.
More crossover between the Dead and the Dan than one might think.
Really, because I'm thinking
I'll
about...
just leave it there.
I wanted to get into like Purdy, Gadd, and Keltner, and just imagine in that scene.
Yeah, well, I'm down with it. I'm down with any of those, but all I have to say is this, and it's a very selfish thing, is as much as I'm looking forward to the period when we're all out playing music again live and having something to do, it'll make me sad because then we won't get to have cool guests like you on our podcast so often. But hey, it's a remote world. You can do it.
I'll phone in from the road, baby.
Backstage at Red Rocks, baby.
Yeah.
That'd rule.
Exactly.